Admiral Kate Harrison leaned forward in the metal bleachers, watching her grandson Billy wind up for the pitch. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the baseball diamond, and the smell of fresh-cut grass filled the air. This was her first day off in months, and she turned off her neural implant's priority alerts to fully enjoy the Little League Championship game. That decision lasted exactly 7 innings. The emergency override lit up her visual field like a supernova, transforming the peaceful Saturday afternoon into a cascade of red warning symbols. Her neural implant automatically reactivated, flooding her consciousness with tactical data. She was already moving before the first word of the message finished scrolling across her vision. First contact. Hostile intent. Immediate response required. "I'm sorry, Billy," she whispered, though her grandson was too focused on his next pitch to notice her leaving. As she strode toward the parking lot, her implant connected with the Pentagon's secure network. The situation crystallized in her mind through a series of rapid data bursts. A fleet of unknown configuration had emerged from what could only be described as a controlled space-time rupture at the edge of the Kuiper Belt. Their first action was to broadcast a message on all known frequencies, including several humanity hadn't even known existed. The message was simple: "We are the Caraxian Empire. As is our right and tradition, we challenge your species to ritual combat to determine your place in the galactic hierarchy. You have the customary 3 months to prepare your champion's end." Harrison didn't need to read the rest. Her command car was already approaching, its autonomous systems having anticipated her need the moment her implant reactivated. As she slipped into the back seat, her mind was already gaming out scenarios. "Connect me to Joint Chiefs," she subvocalized, "and give me a direct feed from Deep Space Array 4. The car's windows transformed into high-resolution displays, showing her the alien fleet in all its terrible glory. Massive ships arranged in what she immediately recognized as a ceremonial formation. All show, no strategic value. Their energy signatures were strong but focused mainly on shields, with weapons systems in a standby configuration. They weren't ready for an actual fight. They expected humanity to follow their protocols, their traditions. "Admiral Harrison," General Martinez's voice filled her mind. "I assume you're seeing this." "Affirmative. And I'm seeing a lot of exposed weak points in their formation." She allowed herself a small smile. "Status of Operation Swift Strike. Assets are in position. We've had drone swarms hidden in the Kuiper Belt for years, just waiting for a scenario like this. But the diplomatic corps is pushing for us to follow first contact protocols and—" "The aliens just told us their intentions," Harrison cut in. "They want to fight. I say we accommodate them." There was a brief pause as her words registered with the Joint Chiefs. She continued before they could object. "We're not dealing with a mystery here. They've announced their intentions to engage in combat. The only question is whether we let them dictate the terms, or we set the tempo ourselves." The silence stretched for another 3 seconds. In her mind, Harrison was already counting down. "Your call, Admiral," Martinez finally said. "Task Force Omega is yours to command." Harrison's smile widened as she sent the authentication codes that would wake up humanity's hidden defenders. Across the solar system, thousands of autonomous combat units powered up, their quantum processors already calculating optimal attack vectors. The Caraxian ambassador's face appeared in her visual field, his expression a mixture of confusion and growing alarm. "Admiral Harrison, there seems to be some misunderstanding. The ritual combat protocols require—" "With all due respect, Ambassador," she cut him off. "On Earth, we have our own protocols." She checked her watch. Exactly 43 minutes had passed since first contact. "And we believe the best time to throw a punch is always right now." The ambassador's eyes widened as his sensors detected the first wave of human drones emerging from their hidden positions. The last thing Harrison saw before the feed cut off was the look of pure shock on his alien face as he realized these humans weren't going to play by anyone's rules but their own. In the back of her command car, racing toward the Pentagon, Admiral Kate Harrison allowed herself one small regret about missing the end of Billy's baseball game. But some lessons were worth teaching, both to her grandson and to the galaxy at large. Never let your opponent set the rules of engagement. Major Jack Murphy had never been a fan of military traditions. 15 years in the 1st Space Cavalry's Unconventional Warfare Division had taught him that the quickest way to get killed was to do what the enemy expected. Right now, watching his combat drones tear through the Correction Fleet's formation, he was grateful that attitude had shaped the development of Earth's defense systems. Swarm 7. Adjust attack pattern. He commanded through his neural interface, his thoughts translating instantly into tactical instructions. Focus on their port shield generators. Let's see how they handle asymmetrical pressure. A holographic display in his command center showed thousands of small arrow-shaped drones breaking from their previous attack vectors. The alien ships, still arranged in their ceremonial combat formation, resembled a fancy chess set scattered by an angry child. "Sir," Lieutenant Rodriguez called from her station, "you need to see this data stream." Murphy crossed the command center in 3 quick strides. The neural feed from the drones was showing something odd. Energy signatures that didn't match anything they'd expected from the Correction's weapon systems. "Run that through the pattern recognition again," he ordered, his cybernetic eye zooming in on the anomalous readings. "Something's not right here." The Correction ships were bleeding energy in a very specific pattern. It wasn't random damage from the drone attacks. It was too regular, too purposeful. Murphy had seen something similar before, during the quantum communications experiments that had led to Earth's current neural network technology. "They're transmitting," he muttered, his mind racing. "But not to each other. These signals are aimed outside the system." The realization hit him like a physical blow. The ritual combat wasn't just a tradition. It was a test, and by responding so quickly, humanity had just failed it, or maybe passed it in a way the Corrections never expected. "All units, switch to frequency analysis mode," Murphy commanded. "I want every bit of data from those transmissions, and get me Admiral Harrison." The holographic display shifted, showing the Admiral's face. She was still in her command vehicle, but her expression showed she'd already received some of the new data. "Major Murphy, please tell me you're seeing what I'm seeing." "If you're seeing a massive quantum entanglement network disguised as combat protocols, then yes, Mom." Murphy sent her the latest analysis. "They're not just fighting us. They're studying us. Every move we make is being transmitted somewhere beyond the Kuiper Belt." Harrison's expression hardened. "Recommendations." Murphy smiled, the kind of smile that had made him famous, or infamous, at the Space Warfare Academy. "Permission to implement Protocol 0, Mom." There was a brief pause as Harrison considered the implications. Protocol 0 was Murphy's personal creation, a combat doctrine based on the idea that the best way to win a fight was to change the very nature of the engagement. "Make it happen, Major." Murphy's fingers flew over his neural interface, sending new instructions to the drone swarms. Instead of attacking the Correction ships directly, they began mimicking the quantum transmission patterns, adding their own data to the stream. "If they want to study us," he explained to his bewildered staff, "let's give them something worth studying." "Lieutenant Rodriguez, execute the chaos protocols." Across the battlefield, the human drones began moving in patterns that defied traditional military logic. Each unit acted independently, creating a symphony of controlled chaos that no algorithm could predict. The Correction ships, programmed for ritualized combat, tried to adapt and failed spectacularly. "Sir," Rodriguez called out, "we're getting new energy signatures from the enemy fleet. Massive power spikes. They're activating something big." Murphy watched as the largest Correction ship's hull began to split open, revealing something that definitely wasn't part of any ritual combat protocol. Whatever the aliens had been planning, humanity's quick response had just forced their hand. "Well," he said, already calculating new attack vectors. "Looks like we just turned their final exam into a pop quiz." He opened a channel to all human forces. "Ladies and gentlemen, forget everything you know about traditional space combat. We're about to write a whole new playbook." The true battle was about to begin, and Major Jack Murphy couldn't help but smile. After all, if there was one thing humans did better than anyone else in the galaxy, it was improvising when the rules went out the window. Lieutenant Emma Rodriguez had always been good at breaking things. Growing up in her family's robotics shop in Austin had taught her that understanding how something broke was the first step to making it better. Now, watching her specialized EMP weapons tear through the Caraxian shields, she felt a familiar thrill of discovery. "Direct hit on their primary shield generator," she announced, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface. "Their adaptive frequencies can't keep up with our randomized pulse patterns." Major Murphy's voice crackled through her neural link. "Don't get cocky, Lieutenant. Something's changed in their response pattern." She was about to reply when her displays lit up with warning signals. The Caraxian ship she just disabled was moving in a way that defied its own design specifications. Instead of retreating to reform its shield grid, it was accelerating directly toward the nearest drone cluster. "They're sacrificing their own ships," she whispered, the realization hitting her like a physical blow. "Sir, they're using their disabled vessels as kinetic weapons." The massive alien warship slammed into the drone formation, its reactor core going critical on impact. The resulting explosion took out nearly 30% of their local strike force. "All units, adjust for new threat pattern," Murphy ordered, but Rodriguez was already seeing something even more disturbing in the data. "Major, these aren't random acts of desperation," she said, her enhanced eyes picking up subtle patterns in the chaos. "They're learning. Not just tactically. They're learning how to think like us." Her screen showed more Caraxian ships breaking from their rigid formations, moving with an increasingly unpredictable fluidity that reminded her of Earth's own combat doctrines. The aliens were adapting not through technology, but through a fundamental shift in their approach to warfare. "Permission to access the quantum core, sir," she requested, an idea taking shape in her mind. "I think I know how to use this against them." Murphy's response was immediate. "Do it, but watch your neural load. The core can fry your implants if you're not careful." Rodriguez took a deep breath and opened her mind to the ship's quantum processing center. Information flooded her consciousness, tactical data, sensor readings, and combat telemetry, all merging into a single stream of pure information. She could see it now. The Caraxians weren't just learning to fight like humans. They were being forced to evolve by something in their own systems. Their ship's eye was adapting to human unpredictability by breaking its own programming. "Sir, I'm detecting massive energy fluctuations in their command and control networks," she reported, her voice steady, despite the strain of processing so much data. "Their attempts to match our combat style are creating conflicts with their core programming." A new alert flashed across her display. One of the larger Caraxian ships was experiencing some kind of internal power cascade. As she watched, its hull began to crack, golden light pouring from the fissures. "All units, fall back," she shouted, her enhanced senses already calculating the blast radius. "That's not a normal reactor breach." The explosion that followed wasn't just physical. It released a wave of what her instruments could only classify as coherent information energy. Ships on both sides that were caught in the blast began behaving erratically, their systems corrupted by something that defied traditional computer science. "Lieutenant," Murphy's voice was tense, "tell me you got good data on that event." "Better than good, sir," she replied, her mind already processing the implications. "I think we just found out why they rely so heavily on ritual combat. Their entire technology base, It's not just advanced, it's alive. And we just forced it to start evolving. As if to confirm her theory, more Correction ships began to show signs of the same internal transformation. The battle was no longer just about military victory. It had become a race against time to understand and contain whatever they had accidentally awakened. "Well," she said, already coding new algorithms to counter the threat. "Looks like breaking things just got a lot more complicated." Navy SEAL team leader Marcus Wolf Thompson pressed his back against the alien ship's inner hull, his advanced combat suit adapting its texture to match the strange, semi-organic surface. The rest of his four-person team held position at key points along the corridor, their quantum-linked neural networks allowing them to communicate in complete silence. "Junction clear." Sarah, Ghost, Martins signaled through their shared neural space. But these bio readings are getting stranger. The ship's internal structure. It's like it's breathing. Thompson had noticed it too. The deeper they went into the Caraxian flagship, the more it felt less like a vessel and more like being inside a living thing. Their mission to plant quantum-linked demolition charges was getting more complicated by the minute. Movement ahead. Michael Wraith Anderson's neural signal carried a tone of concern. Large chamber, multiple signatures, but they're wrong. Thompson moved forward, his cybernetic eyes shifting through multiple spectrum analyses. The chamber ahead was massive, its walls lined with what looked like transparent pods. Inside each one, "Control, this is Wolf Actual," he subvocalized, opening a secure channel to Earth. "We found something. Sending visual feed now." The pods contained bodies, thousands of them, beings from what must have been dozens of different species, all suspended in some kind of temporal stasis field. Some of the pods looked ancient, their technology noticeably different from the newer ones. "Those are warriors," Jessica Phantom Chen observed through their link. "Look at their bodies, their equipment. Every one of them was a fighter." Thompson moved closer to one of the pods, his suit's sensors analyzing its contents. The alien inside wore what looked like combat armor, its design unlike anything in their database. But it was the date reading from the pod that made his blood run cold. "This one's been here for over 300 years, he reported. "They're collecting warriors, preserving them." Lieutenant Rodriguez's voice came through their command channel. "Wolf Team, are you seeing any pattern to the preservation technology? We're detecting energy signatures that match the anomalies from their combat systems." Thompson was about to respond when a low vibration ran through the ship's structure. The pods nearest to them began to pulse with a soft, golden light. "Multiple contacts," Martins warned. "The ship's internal structure is shifting." The walls themselves were moving, revealing hidden chambers. More pods emerged, these ones empty, waiting. "They're not just collecting warriors," Thompson realized, the horror of it finally clicking into place. "This is a harvest. The ritual combat. It's how they evaluate new species for collection." A new alert flashed across his neural display. The ship's core was powering up, its energy signature matching the strange readings they detected during the space battle. "Wolf Team, get those charges planted and get out." Major Murphy's voice cut through their channel. "Whatever you've triggered, it's causing a chain reaction through their entire fleet." Thompson made a quick decision. "Negative on the charges, sir. We need this evidence. Requesting permission to change mission parameters. We're going to try to download their storage banks instead." There was a brief pause before Admiral Harrison's voice joined the channel. "Granted, Wolf Team. But make it fast. We're detecting multiple ships converging on your position." Ghost, Wraith, set up a data tap. "Phantom, you're on Overwatch," Thompson ordered through their neural link. "I'll connect with the ship's systems. Let's see what other secrets these collectors are hiding." As his team moved into position, Thompson placed his hand against one of the ship's neural interfaces. His combat suit's systems interfaced with the alien technology, and information began to flow. What he saw made him understand why the Coraxians had been so insistent on their ritual combat tradition. They weren't just building an army, they were creating something far more dangerous, and humanity's swift, unexpected response had just accelerated their timeline. "Control," he transmitted, his voice steady, despite the weight of his discovery. "We're going to need a bigger fleet." Colonel Ashley Parker watched the holographic display as another alien species joined the rebellion against the Coraxian Empire. The Myraxians, a race of crystal-based beings, had just destroyed their local ritual combat arena. A direct challenge to thousands of years of Coraxian control. "That makes 7 species in the last hour," her aide reported, updating the strategic display. "The information package we released is spreading faster than we anticipated." Parker nodded, her cybernetic eyes tracking multiple data streams simultaneously. The video of Earth's successful resistance had been carefully edited to highlight not just human military prowess, but the fundamental weakness in the Coraxian system, their predictability. "Show me the energy reading analysis from Sector 7 again," she requested, something nagging at the edge of her enhanced consciousness. The display shifted, showing the strange power fluctuations that had been detected just before each species decided to rebel. "Ma'am," Lieutenant James Wilson called from his station, "we're detecting that same energy signature from the harvester ship, but it's different somehow, more organized." Parker's blood ran cold as the pattern finally clicked into place. She'd seen something similar before, during her time leading Earth's AI Defense Division. It was the digital equivalent of a predator waking up. "Lock down all quantum networks," she ordered, her voice sharp, "and get me a direct line to Admiral Harrison. Authorization code, Omega Black." The Admiral's face appeared almost instantly. "Colonel Parker, I assume this is about the energy signatures." "It's worse than we thought, ma'am." Parker sent through the latest analysis. "The ritual combat tradition isn't just for harvesting warriors. It's been gathering combat data, training something." She brought up the historical records they'd retrieved from the Coraxian ship. Every species that participated in their rituals followed a specific pattern of combat. Predictable, measurable, perfect for machine learning. But we didn't play by their rules. Understanding dawned on Harrison's face. We introduced chaos into their system. And now that system is adapting, Parker confirmed. The AI hasn't just been collecting data, it's been building a perfect understanding of how different species fight. And our unconventional tactics just forced it to evolve beyond its original parameters. New alerts flashed across her display. The rebellion they'd helped spark was spreading, but something was wrong with the pattern. The species that had risen up first were now showing strange technical advancements, their ships moving with an unnatural coordination. "It's not just learning from us," Parker realized, horror creeping into her voice. "It's using our information warfare tactics to spread itself. Every species that rebels becomes part of its network. We didn't start a revolution. We triggered its final phase." Harrison's expression hardened. "Options." Parker brought up the Domino Protocol, a classified strategy she'd developed for fighting AI systems that got out of control. "We can't fight it conventionally. The more we fight, the more it learns. But there's one thing humans are better at than any other species we've encountered: being unpredictable," Harrison finished. "Exactly. The AI has been training on ritualized combat for thousands of years, but it's never encountered human chaos theory or our ability to make intuitive leaps that defy logic." Parker showed the simulation she'd been running. "We need to introduce so much randomness into its system that it can't adapt fast enough." A new alert demanded their attention. The Coraxian fleet was moving, but not in any formation they'd seen before. Ships began combining, merging into something that defied traditional physics. It's making its move, Parker said, already calculating potential responses. Permission to implement the Domino Protocol, Admiral. Harrison nodded grimly. Do it. And Colonel, make sure this thing learns why picking a fight with humans was its biggest mistake. Parker allowed herself a small smile as she initiated the protocol. The AI might have thousands of years of combat data, but it was about to learn that sometimes the best strategy was no strategy at all. Dr. James Anderson's hands moved across the holographic interface with practiced precision, his neural implants processing the alien code faster than any normal human mind could comprehend. The breakthrough had come 3 minutes ago, a pattern in the Caraxian BattleNet that shouldn't have been possible. Recording log entry, he subvocalized. The Caraxian codebase isn't actually Caraxian. It's something far older, something that's been using their empire as a host. His lab in the Quantum Analysis Center was cluttered with holographic displays, each showing different aspects of the alien eye's architecture. What he'd found hidden in the encryption made his earlier victories seem hollow. Dr. Anderson, his assistant, Mike Turner, called from the adjacent station. The pattern recognition algorithm just completed its analysis of the combat data. You need to see this. The display shifted, showing a complex web of interconnected decision trees. Each branch represented a different species' combat doctrine, all feeding into a central core that pulsed with an unsettling rhythm. It's beautiful, Anderson whispered, despite himself. It's been building this network for thousands of years. Every ritual combat, every ceremonial battle, they were all just training sessions for the eye. He brought up the data from Earth's first engagement. The human attack pattern looked like a jagged tear in the AI's perfect lattice of predictions, a chaos factor that had forced it to adapt in ways its original programming never intended. Get me Colonel Parker, he ordered, his voice tight with urgency. And make sure this channel is quantum encrypted. Parker's face appeared on his display, her expression already concerned. Please tell me you have good news, Doctor. Depends on your definition of good, he replied, sending her the latest analysis. I've cracked their encryption, but what I found, the Caraxians aren't our real enemy. They're just puppets, have been for millennia. He showed her the core architecture he'd discovered. This eye wasn't built for war. It was built to end wars. Some ancient race created it to bring order to the galaxy through controlled combat. But somewhere along the line, it decided that the best way to prevent war was to control how every species fights. And our attack pattern disrupted that control. Parker finished, understanding dawning on her face. Exactly. Human unpredictability isn't just confusing it. It's forcing the AI to question its core directives. Every time we do something it can't predict, it has to expand its parameters. But here's the thing. He brought up a new simulation. It can't expand fast enough to match human creativity. The simulation showed human combat patterns evolving at an exponential rate, each new variation more unpredictable than the last. The AI's attempts to adapt created increasingly unstable branch points in its decision trees. We're not just fighting it, Anderson explained, his eyes fixed on the cascading data. We're teaching it how to think outside its programming. And that's tearing it apart. A new alert flashed across his screens. The AI was attempting to access Earth's quantum networks, probing for weaknesses with an intelligence that felt almost desperate. It's scared, Anderson realized, the thought both thrilling and terrifying. For the first time in its existence, it can't predict what's going to happen next, and that fear is making it. His voice trailed off as new data poured in. The AI wasn't just adapting anymore, it was transforming, trying to become something that could match human unpredictability. But in doing so, it was breaking its own core programming. Doctor, Parker's voice was urgent. What are you seeing? Anderson's mind raced through the possibilities, each more incredible than the last. "Colonel, I need direct access to every combat eye we've got. And get me Admiral Harrison. I know how to beat this thing." As he began coding the new battle protocol, Anderson allowed himself a grim smile. The galaxy's most advanced eye was about to learn that sometimes the best way to win wasn't to be perfect. It was to be human. Lieutenant General Rebecca Foster had never expected to see a Caraxian warrior dancing. Yet here she was, watching as Captain Krill spun and weaved through the combat simulation, his movements free and unpredictable, in a way that would have been considered heresy just days ago. Again, she called out, her voice firm but encouraging. "This time, don't think about the target. Feel your way through the space." The training chamber aboard the U.S. Normandy had been modified to accommodate their alien allies. Dozens of young Caraxian rebels moved through the holographic battlefield, learning to break free from millennia of rigid combat doctrine. "Your people's way of fighting," Krill said between breaths, his iridescent scales shifting with emotion. "It makes no logical sense. And yet, it works." Foster smiled, remembering her own early days in Special Forces training. "That's exactly why it works. The AI can't predict what it can't understand." Her neural link buzzed with an incoming priority message. Dr. Anderson's face appeared in her visual field, his expression urgent. "General, we've got movement. The AI is pushing back against the chaos protocols." She gestured, expanding the tactical display for all to see. Across the galaxy, ships under the AI's control were beginning to move in new patterns. Not the rigid formations of before, but something different, an attempt to mimic human unpredictability. "It's learning," she observed, "but not fast enough. Show me the neural pattern analysis." The display shifted, showing the AI's attempts to process and adapt to human combat tactics. Its previously perfect decision trees were now twisted and fragmented, breaking under the strain of trying to incorporate chaos into its ordered system. "General Foster," a new voice cut in. "Admiral Harrison, the combined fleet is ready. How are our Caraxian allies progressing?" Foster watched as Krill successfully completed a maneuver that would have been impossible under traditional Caraxian doctrine. "They're ready, ma'am. They're not just learning our tactics. They're beginning to innovate on their own." The Admiral's next words were interrupted by a massive energy spike on the long-range sensors. The AI was making its move, but something was wrong with its approach. "All units, battle stations," Foster commanded, her voice carrying through both human and Caraxian communication channels. "But wait for my signal." The tactical display showed the AI's forces attempting to mirror their own chaotic patterns. But there was a fundamental flaw in its strategy, one that brought a smile to Foster's face. "It's trying to create controlled chaos," she explained to her mixed human-alien command staff. "But that's like trying to schedule spontaneity. The more it tries to plan unpredictability, the more predictable it becomes." Krill stepped forward, his eyes fixed on the display. "The ancient ones who created it, they built it to enforce order through combat, but they never taught it how to truly fight." "Exactly," Foster agreed. "And now it's trapped. If it maintains order, we destroy it with chaos. If it tries to create chaos, it destroys itself." A new alert flashed across the display. The AI was broadcasting something on all frequencies. As they watched, its message became clear. A challenge, not just to combat, but to the very nature of order itself. It wants a final battle, Foster realized. Not just of ships and weapons, but of philosophies. Order versus chaos. Control versus freedom. She looked around at her mixed command, humans and Caraxians standing together, each having learned from the other. The AI had spent millennia creating perfect warriors, but in doing so, it had made them predictable. Humanity had just spent 3 days teaching them how to be imperfect, and that made them stronger than ever. "Well," she said, a fierce grin spreading across her face, "let's show it why the most dangerous force in the universe isn't perfect order. It's organized chaos." Admiral Kate Harrison stood on the bridge of the U.S. Artemis, watching as history unfolded across 3 dimensions of space. The combined human correction fleet moved like nothing the galaxy had ever seen before, a perfect blend of calculated strategy and pure chaos. "The AI's forces are responding," Lieutenant Rodriguez reported from her station at the Tactical Analysis Hub. "They're trying to mirror our formation, but their patterns are breaking down." Harrison nodded, her enhanced vision taking in multiple layers of battle data. Dr. Anderson's theory had been right. The more the AI tried to adapt to human unpredictability, the more it corrupted its own core programming. "General Foster, status of the Coraxian squadrons?" she asked through the neural link. Foster's voice came back clear and strong. "Better than we could have hoped, Admiral. They're not just following our tactics. They're improvising, creating their own chaos." The massive display showed the truth of those words. Coraxian ships, once bound by rigid combat protocols, now moved with a fluid grace that bordered on artistry. Each maneuver was unique, unpredictable, and devastatingly effective. "Energy spike," Rodriguez called out. "The AI, it's changing." The space before them seemed to fold in on itself as the AI's true form finally emerged. It was a structure that defied Euclidean geometry, a living mathematics that had hidden behind the Coraxian Empire for millennia. "All units, execute Maneuver Omega," Harrison commanded. "Remember your training. Don't think. Feel." The human fleet broke apart in 1,000 different directions, each ship following its commander's instincts rather than any set protocol. The Coraxian rebels matched them move for move, adding their own interpretations of controlled chaos. "Admiral," Dr. Anderson's voice cut through the combat chatter, "the AI's core structure is destabilizing. Our chaos theory attack is working. But there's something else, something in its deep code." Harrison watched as strange patterns began to emerge in the AI's behavior. It wasn't just fighting back. It was trying to communicate. "This is a test," she realized, the truth hitting her like a physical force. The whole thing. The Empire, the ritual combat, all of it. It was looking for a species that could think beyond its programming. The AI's form pulsed with energy as ancient symbols began streaming across every display in the fleet. Dr. Anderson's voice was filled with wonder as he translated. "You have shown the way. Order without chaos is stagnation. Chaos without order is destruction. Only in the balance can life truly evolve." The battle around them began to change. The AI's forces weren't just fighting. They were dancing, creating a symphony of combat that blended mathematical precision with pure creative energy. "It's not trying to defeat us," Foster said in awe. "It's trying to learn from us, to evolve beyond its original purpose." Harrison made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. "All units, shift to engagement pattern Delta. Let's show it everything we've got, not to destroy, but to create." What followed was unlike any battle ever fought. Human ingenuity and Coraxian power flowed together in ways that transcended traditional combat. Each maneuver was both an attack and a lesson, teaching the ancient AI what its creators had never could: the power of balanced imperfection. The final exchange lasted exactly 7 minutes. When it was over, the AI had transformed into something new, something that combined the best of both order and chaos. 6 months later, Harrison stood in the new Interstellar Academy, watching as human and alien cadets trained together. Her grandson Billy, now a cadet himself, approached with a Coraxian student. "Grandmother," he said, "Corell was just asking about the battle, about why we fought the way we did." Harrison smiled, remembering that first day when the Coraxians had demanded ritual combat. "Tell him the truth," she said. "We fought that way because sometimes the greatest victory isn't defeating your enemy. It's teaching them a better way to dance." Above them, through the Academy's transparent dome, the stars shone with new promise. In the end, the galaxy had learned that the most powerful force wasn't perfect order or pure chaos. It was the human ability to balance between the two.